First day of transmigration, and my ass is beaten black and blue. Don't ask, just know it's for dereliction of duty. I, Yan Hui's descendant, the greatest nepotism hire of the Tang Dynasty. No sooner had I arrived than Yu Qigong's own son pinned me down and gave me a flogging. Even crazier, after the beating, I had to go stitch up his brother's wound. With strands of hair, with an embroidery needle. The imperial physician was so stunned, he went catatonic. Don't panic, it's only the first day. My name is Yan Bai. The moment I opened my eyes, a thick stench of blood and foot odor hit me. My head felt like it had been shoved in a blender, ready to explode. Someone nearby was cheering. He's awake, awake. Young lord, this kid didn't die. I forced my eyes open and saw a few burly, hairy men grinning at me with yellow teeth. They wore crudely made leather armor, some with only a few planks tied to their chests. I froze. I was clearly on my lunch break. How come when I woke up, I was lying in this wilderness? I looked down and saw I was wearing an ancient black robe. I lifted it for a look. Good grief, I didn't even have underwear on. I spun around on the ground like a madman, feeling my face, looking for puddles to check my reflection, and using a stick to measure my height. Not far away, the guy they called Young Lord was watching me with a worried expression. Damn it, he probably thought I'd cracked my head from the fall. After exhausting myself, I collapsed onto the ground. Memories began trickling back. The 9th year of Wuda. Li Shimin had just ascended the throne. The Turks were already at Chang'an's gates. My current identity was the 37th generation legitimate heir of the Yan family, whose ancestor was Yan Hui, the foremost of Confucius's 72 disciples. Our clan had passed down the tradition of farming and studying for 1,000 years, holding a supreme status among scholars. But the original owner of this body was a complete anomaly. He hated studying and loved nothing but wielding spears and swords, vowing to become another Huatsubing. Hearing that the Turks had invaded, he left a note and sneaked off to join the army. But on the way, he ran into a Turkish scout squad in the wilderness. He fell off his horse, couldn't catch his breath, and then I came along. I pinched my thigh. It hurt. This was real, not a dream. Before I could even process all this information, suddenly, the sound of hooves came from the hillside. 7 or 8 Turks with braided hair charged over, howling and brandishing curved sabers. An arrow split the air and embedded itself in the ground before me, half buried. My mind went blank, and I rolled into a small pit to hide. That young duke, named Yuchi Baolin, the biological son of Yuchi Jingda, drew his longbow and shot down a Turk with a single arrow. The Tang army behind him let loose a volley. The Turks left 2 bodies and fled. Then I saw a stout man walk over. He drew his blade and swung. A head with a little braid rolled far across the ground. Blood spurted from the neck of the headless corpse, spraying high and wide. My vision went black, and I fainted. When I woke again, my buttocks were burning with pain. For deserting my post, I had received 10 strokes of the bastinado on the buttocks. Lying on a pile of hay, I watched the banner with the character Tang fluttering in the wind in the distance. I had to accept the reality. I had time traveled to the 9th year of Wuda in the Great Tang, an era on the brink of the flourishing Jingguan period, a time of great change. Having been beaten, my buttocks hurt terribly. I dragged myself out of the tent, picked a handful of dandelions outside the camp, returned to the barracks, washed them clean, and mashed them on a stone slab with a warm stone. Yuchi Baolin leaned against the fence watching me fuss, looking wary. What are you doing? Treating a wound. I didn't even look up. Under his horrified gaze, I took off my pants and spread the mashed dandelion evenly over the wound. A cooling sensation spread, and I couldn't help squinting my eyes. Yuchi Baolin's eyes lit up. You could treat wounds. I can diagnose, but not treat. I pulled up my pants. He hesitated, then gritted his teeth. There are a few brothers in the injury camp who are as good as dead. Can you take a look at them? No. Are you still holding a grudge over me hitting you with the board? How about this? If you can cure them, I'll lie down and let you hit me. Really? Really? Lead the way. In the injury camp, Imperial physician He Guan stood with his hands behind his back, looking at me with a haughty face. Colonel Yuchi, you bring a young lad here to treat wounds? He snorted coldly. What about my 10 years of hard study? What about the lives of these soldiers in the injury camp? I ignored him and made a round of the infirmary. It was filthy and messy, with flies buzzing over the wounds, and bleeding was stopped only by plant ash. One of the brothers had a gash as long as a palm on his thigh, red and swollen, clearly about to fester. I couldn't help but speak up. What are the common supplies for treating wounds? How do you treat a fresh wound? What are the steps for treating an ulcer? Guanjing was stunned, his face alternating between pale and red. Suddenly, he flicked his sleeve. A mere brat dares to discuss medicine before me. I smiled. Medicine isn't applied, discipline empty talk is useless. Since physician, he looks down on me. I'll reluctantly show my skills. I picked the man with the chopped thigh. Brother, what did physician he say about your leg? Guanjing snorted coldly. If he endures it, the leg can be saved. If not, it will rot and the leg will be lost. This is not me being reckless with lives. This is a military camp with limited medicinal herbs. Channan's 4 gates are tightly shut. I nodded. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, we have to fight for it. I scrubbed the copper basin used for collecting blood clean, boiled water, and cooked the linen cloth. He went outside the camp to pick dandelions and honeysuckle, wash them clean, and put the honeysuckle in a copper pot to boil. Guanjing watched coldly, his gaze slowly shifting. The water boiled and the honeysuckle simmered soft. I took the copper pot down and set it aside to let the water cool. I used boiled linen cloth to clean the wounds, then washed them again with honeysuckle water. Honeysuckle is a natural anti-inflammatory plant, taught by Grandpa. I pulled a large embroidery needle from the bottom of the pot and deftly threaded it with a strand of hair. Everyone in the wounded camp stared wide-eyed. Brother, this is going to hurt a lot. Bear with it. The man put on a brave face. I ain't afraid of Turkic dogs, so what's a needle? The moment it pierced his skin. Oh my God. For strong men held him down, his screams like a pig being slaughtered. My hands were actually trembling too. I'd only ever practiced on pig skin before. This was my first time stitching a real person. But my hand stayed steady. 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches. The wound was tightly sewn together with a hair thread. I sighed with relief and remembered. Drink dandelion decoction every day, and if possible, wash the wound with honeysuckle water. As long as it doesn't get inflamed or fester, in 10 days or half a month he'll be as vigorous as ever. Guanjing stood to the side, his lips trembling for a long time. Suddenly he cupped his hands, his voice quivering slightly. The greatest truths are the simplest indeed. I have learned from you, student. Night fell. The mugwort was lit and then doused with cold water, smoke swirling throughout the camp. I lay by the fire, my backside still aching. Yuchi Baolin sat across from me, elegantly drinking honeysuckle-infused water. Guanjing said it could clear heat and detoxify. Denyo was also drinking, one gulp after another. He was a garrison soldier. After I stitched his leg, he was full of vitality, grinning foolishly from time to time, as if he could already see himself charging in a battle after recovery. Yuchi Baolin suddenly put down his bowl, his expression solemn. Yan Bai, I have one request. Go easy on me when you hit me. He wasn't laughing. His voice was very low. Tomorrow I go to the battlefield. The fire crackled, casting flickering light and shadow across his face. If I die on the battlefield, can I ask your family elder to write my name when they compile the history in the future? I was stunned. Just that simple? He nodded firmly. Even just 2 characters would do. Looking at his earnest eyes, my heart ached. This son of an official who had punished me with a cane was going to risk his life against the Turks tomorrow. He didn't know if he would come back alive. How about the 4 characters fierce and invincible? His eyes lit up instantly. He jumped up and gestured excitedly. Excellent, excellent. That night, I slept soundly. When I was woken by the morning sunlight the next day, the entire camp was empty. All the war horses were gone. Only the wounded soldiers and a few camp keepers remained. Danyu limped back from outside, carrying a big basket of honeysuckle and dandelions. Where are the people? All gone to battle. Danyu set down the herbs. The Turks are by the Jing River. Grand Commander Yuchi is leading the vanguard himself. 3,000 cavalry, lightly armed. This time we'll make those Turk dogs never return. I slapped my thigh. Why didn't you call me when the army set out? Danyu scratched his head. The captain said you're a stubborn mule, that bringing you to the battlefield is less useful than bringing a dog. Danyu wiped his sweat. Doctor, he was also dragged to the battlefield. The head steward said anyone who can move has to go. So, he looked at me, eyes full of hope. Now over 100 brothers in the injured camp are all in your hands. I felt like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. I can do it. Danyu patted his stitched-up thigh. Why can't I? My leg can move now. The brothers are all watching. I fell silent. Over 100 people, no medical system, no proper medicine, and just me, a half-baked amateur. This is playing with lives. I shook my head. I'm not a doctor. What if I mess up and harm the brothers? Fear nothing. Danyu suddenly bellowed, thumping his chest so hard it echoed. If they get better, it's your excellent skill. If they don't, it's our fate. Just go ahead and treat them. Anyone who dares to talk trash afterward, I'll dig them up from the grave and grind their bones to dust. Right? The wounded men in the shed started cheering in agreement. I dug him up from the ground and ground his bones to ashes. Just then, the wounded soldiers in the shed started making a ruckus. Chief Yan, sew me up too. That Turk bastard cut my ass with a saber. I'm first. I got a gash on my back. Why should he go first? I was here first. Watching these men fighting to be guinea pigs, my nose stung. For all these years I've muddled through life, Yan Bai, but this was the first time I felt so important. Thank you, brothers, for trusting me. I'll give it a try. A cheer erupted from the infirmary. Danyu and I began checking each one by one. Most were from swords or arrows, crudely and roughly treated. But thankfully, they were just flesh wounds, nothing vital hit. And I saw the truly tough cases. One brother had his leg crushed by a horse, the fracture shaped like a 7. Another had his wrist severed clean off, and another had a dent bashed into his skull. But amazingly, he was still clear-headed, just couldn't lift his head. Any attempt brought violent vomiting. A workman must first sharpen his tools if he is to do his work well. Since Yan Bai had decided to do this properly, he would have to give it his all, even though his abilities couldn't ensure everyone received the best treatment. He had to make these people feel that there was still hope and reason to keep living, at least psychologically. The few medicine apprentices who came with physician, he hadn't gone to the battlefield to make a show of force. Instead, they were now being ordered around by Yan Bai. One was in charge of boiling water, one was in charge of cleaning, and one was in charge of tearing linen into strips of various sizes. Then they boiled them vigorously in hot water. Yan Bai wasn't idle either. He frantically recalled the cultural knowledge he had long since discarded. What was the first step? What was the second step? What was the third step? Ah, which damn teacher taught me this? What a disaster. I was spacing out in class. Why didn't you kick me? Why didn't you slap me across the face? Yan Bai beat his chest and stamped his feet, roaring at the sky. A wounded soldier was startled by Yan Bai's roar. County Sheriff Nyo, what's wrong with Supervisor Yan? Danyo picked his nose. He's homesick, homesick. Right. Danyo switched hands and picked his other nostril. He said in a matter-of-fact tone, when you were little and faced trouble away from home, didn't you miss your dad? Think, if only Dad were here. The wounded soldier nodded. I think County Sheriff Nyo is right, but I don't have a dad. When everything was ready, the sun was already high in the sky. Yan Bai took a deep breath and began suturing the wound of the brother who had been slashed on the buttock. We often say, you just try your best and leave the rest to fate. Yan Bai was also giving it his all, but he dared not leave it all to fate. After all, these are lives. These are living, breathing people. Although whether he saved them or not, these wounds would still get infected as they should. What can be endured will still be endured. But since he chose to take action, he also chose to bear the responsibility. Cleaning the wound, scraping away the dead flesh. Then cleaning again, Yan Bai knew very well that without rigorous sterilization methods, the risk of infection remained high. Yet, given the current environment, this was indeed the best approach. If Dr. He were also here, then combined with herbal medicine, it would certainly have led to a different outcome. The garrison soldiers were the finest men of the Tang Empire. Brave, invincible, skilled in battle. They had forged the Tang Empire into a beacon of glory. Yet when the long needle pierced their flesh, even they would tremble all over. After all, such a method was truly horrifying. Watching Danyo return dragging a honeysuckle vine as thick as an arm, Yan Bai's tense mood eased a little. He couldn't help thinking, if this honeysuckle could speak, it would surely say, Danyo, you just refuse to do anything that's remotely human. Picking flowers is fine, but pulling them up by the roots, what's that about? One person alone is far too busy. Yan Bai tried to get the medicine boy to lend a hand. These children were 11 or 12 years old, but they lacked the liveliness typical of that age. Their eyes saw only work, often just a glance or a gesture from you, and they knew what to do. After thinking it over, Yan Bai decided he could teach these children his own skills. That way, he could lighten his own load. Secondly, it was because his heart softened. He wondered if he could give these kids a helping hand. Though he wasn't sure if suturing wounds counted as a craft, having one more skill was better than none. Watch closely. This is called intermittent suturing, also the most commonly used suturing method. If there's fluid inside the wound, these two threads can be used to prop it open for drainage or applying medicine, while also preventing the wound from reopening. We're using hair, the worst part being it's not soft enough. But given the current conditions, it's the best we have. Yan Bai explained in great detail. She poured her heart into teaching these children. Although the children were completely lost when it came to the professional terminology, they silently committed this precious knowledge to memory. They didn't know who Yan Bai was, but from the envious looks of the mansion guards, they could tell that this was a stroke of fortune for them. Although they belonged to the Imperial Medical Office, the title sounded quite elegant. In reality, they were nothing special. On ordinary days, they were responsible for preparing medicines, organizing, running errands, a word of praise if they did well. And if they did poorly, they were dismissed outright. There were plenty of medicine apprentices. If one left, another would be hired. In the medical office, they were treated like servants to the imperial physicians, summoned at will and discarded at whim. They had no status whatsoever. After a flurry of work, during the break, led by an older apprentice, the 5 apprentices knelt in unison and kowtowed to Yan Bai. Yan Bai couldn't stop them even if she tried. You stop this one, but that one kneels. You stop that one, and this one quickly kneels. Helpless, he could only sit there with a bitter face, watching a group of children kowtow to him 3 times. Big Nyo leaned on the trunk of the honeysuckle tree. He said enviously, "Supervisor Yin, just accept it. These children are all unfortunate souls." After saying that, he suddenly changed his tone and said, "Supervisor Yin is from the Yin family of Chang'an. If you don't know the status of the Yin family, you can go and find out. Teaching and nurturing people for over 1,000 years. Do you know what that means? It means that what Supervisor Yin teaches you is definitely the best skill under heaven. But you're also clever. By doing the 3 bows and 9 kowtows, you have now received the favor of the Yin family. Seeing that you are all young, there is something I still need to say on behalf of the supervisor. As the saying goes, teaching an apprentice makes the master starve. Now the supervisor has passed this craft on to you. In the future, when you marry and have children, you can pass it on to your sons. But without the supervisor's approval, if any of you pass this information to others, haha, you know the consequences of betraying your master, right?" Yan Bai felt his head spinning. Clearly, the more people who know, the better. Yet this big bull was acting like a mafia, threatening everyone here. He stood up, quickly covering Big Bull's mouth, and said to the group of young medicine apprentices, "Don't listen to his nonsense. Teach if you want, but I need to lay out the hard truth first. I'm just a half-baked amateur myself. Why I teach you will probably be half-baked too. Never offer someone a cup of water when you don't have a full bucket yourself, to avoid harming them. If trouble arises later." Wait, Yan Bai paused, thinking this was hard to call. What if there's a prodigy among them? Western medicine developed slowly like that too, didn't it? So he quickly added, "In the end, it's up to yourselves. Others go from nothing to mastery. You can think it over. Don't be misled by my words." With a group of people kowtowing to him, Yan Bai felt tremendous pressure. He explained the rest even more meticulously. The children listened attentively as well. When one is focused, time flies by, and physical fatigue goes unnoticed. Unknowingly, he had been demonstrating and explaining for a long time, from wound bandaging, to sanitary isolation management, to disease prevention. Yan Bai spoke on whatever came to mind. For a moment, the entire wounded camp fell silent. The injured soldier whose but had been stitched up tugged at Nyo's robe. He whispered, "County Marshal Nyo, you've studied books. There's a saying, big, big, big." Big what? Nyo thought for a moment. Big, late bloomer. Great achievements come late. After resting for a while, Yan Bai started bustling again. But this time it was much easier, because there were few more helpers. After observing for a while, Yan Bai gradually felt relieved. These medicine apprentices were very meticulous in cleaning the wounds, and their movements were very gentle. They remembered the instructions clearly. If you ignore the factor of their young age, just by looking at the way they cleaned the wounds, You wouldn't imagine it was done by a half-grown child. Just then, the sound of war drums rumbled in the distance, followed by the thunderous pounding of hooves. Yan Bai's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but recall what Yuchi Baolin had said last night, and his heart clenched painfully. He knew that Yuchi Baolin was only 17 or 18 years old. If not for the days of exhaustion that left his stubble messy, in another era, such a young man would have been active on the sports field with a group of good friends, active on the internet, and immersed in the sweet, budding throes of love. But now, here he was, charging in a battle. Yan Bai felt he had to do something. He looked up and immediately ordered the medicine apprentice. Everyone, go boil hot water right now. Prepare linen cloth. After finishing all this, immediately go nearby to collect honeysuckle and dandelions. The more, the better. The wounded soldiers' camp became busy. Those who were injured also began silently preparing. Everyone knew that whether they won or lost, soon more wounded brothers would surely arrive here. After stitching and bandaging the last brother's wound, Yan Bai also rushed out of the camp. Then he plunged straight into the nearby woods. In the woods, Yan Bai dragged out a honeysuckle vine as thick as an arm. He dragged it straight to the camp. The wounded soldiers in the camp lay down and began picking the flowers. Once a basin was filled, someone would immediately carry it to the river to wash. Time passed very slowly, very slowly. In the Tai Chi Hall of Chang'an not far away, Lier was also waiting anxiously. This was truly an awkward time. Not too late, yet not too early. Though in a few hours the long night would begin. But Lier hoped to have a good dream before the long night arrived. Just then, a warhorse galloped down Zhuke Street, still bearing the smoke of battle. Seeing the frantic urgency of both horse and rider, the street patrol guards instantly understood what had happened. They immediately beat gongs and shouted loudly, "Make way! Make way!" The warhorse ran all the way to Taiji Palace. Seeing the horse halt, a eunuch stepped forward to take the reins, asking a few questions in a low voice. Then his face lit up with joy. He announced loudly, "Congratulations, Your Majesty! Lord Yuchi of Jingyang has won a great victory over the Turks, beheading over 1,000. Lier breathed a sigh of relief. The melancholy on his face slightly faded. He raised his head, his expression becoming as stern as mountain rock. Spread the word. Suddenly, several horses rushed out of the palace, and after leaving the gate, scattered in all directions. Great victory at Jingyang. Over 1,000 Turks beheaded. Our army is mighty. The joyful announcements reached Tsuchi Ward. The old gatekeeper of the Yin family suddenly opened his bleary eyes, rubbed them, and pricked up his ears to listen carefully once more. Then he suddenly dashed toward the back courtyard, his voice choked with tears. "Master! Master! The young master has sent word. The young master has sent word. He's coming back. He's coming back." When they left, there were over 3,000 men. But when they returned, only just over 2,000 remained. More than 700 had died in battle. The Jingyang Grand Camp's infirmary suddenly became overflowing. Nearly 300 wounded soldiers poured in at once. Dr. He, clutching his arm, kept groaning, "Ouch, ouch. Xiaoya, Xiaoya. Come give me a hand, quick. It hurts so much, it hurts so much. Oh my God, oh my heavens." But Shower, the medicine apprentice, didn't come. Instead, Yan Bai came. He pried open the doctor's arm and looked. Yan Bai was taken aback. Wow, this is serious. Such a deep gash. If they had waited a bit longer, it would probably have scabbed over. He Yijing blushed and said apologetically, you have no idea how dangerous it was at that moment." Before he could finish, He Yijing suddenly stood up and said righteously, "Saving lives is like fighting a fire. I'm going to get busy. Come, please make way, supervisor of transport." Yan Bai didn't understand what He Yijing was up to. Turning around, he saw that outside the entrance of the wounded soldiers' camp, a burly man nearly 2 meters tall had appeared at some point. His armor was wrapped tightly around him, revealing only 2 majestic eyes. The fierce aura that rushed toward them was as if a demon god had suddenly descended. The camp instantly fell silent, like a plague had struck. Watching everyone, not one even dared to look up. Yan Bai suddenly realized who this was. Before meeting Yuchi Jingda, Yan Bai had always wondered what kind of person he would be. He was dark and simple, just like in TV shows. He was the iron-hearted man with tender feelings for a wife who shared his hardships. He was a simple, honest and kind-hearted man? Or was he the caustic man in Tang records who enjoyed reopening old wounds? Yan Bai was momentarily stunned. He even forgot to pay his respects. At that moment, Yu Qijing suddenly let out a hearty laugh. Then he walked leisurely over to Yan Bai and patted Yan Bai on the shoulder. "You've changed a lot. Your elder brother would be very pleased to see this." Yan Bai finally snapped out of it. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Supervisor of camp provisions." Yan Bai pays respects to the Grand Commander. Yu Qijing glanced around the completely transformed injured soldiers' camp. He nodded. "Captain Yu recommended you. You're very good, better than he, the medical director. Truly worthy of a noble lineage. Living up to your reputation. From today, you're no longer the supervisor of provisions. You are now the captain of the injured soldiers' camp. Begin overseeing all matters of the camp." Not far away, Higuan's expression changed. A relieved smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Before the smile had even faded, Yu Qijing continued, "Medical officer, he will serve as your deputy and be under your command. Rise." Yan Bai stood up but didn't dare to lift his head. The pressure from Yu Qijing was truly overwhelming. It was like the feeling of messing around during self-study and inadvertently looking up to see the head teacher's half-hidden face at the window, just catching your gaze. It made him a loss. With his hair standing on end and feeling flustered, he heard Yu Qijing continue. "I hear from my son that you want my autograph. Could it be that your Yin family also thinks that I, this unrefined man, have been diligently studying the Analects in recent years? I think highly of you. After this battle is over, I'll invite you to my home as a guest. We can discuss literature together." Because of the armor, Yan Bai glanced over, but couldn't see Yu Qijing's expression. But in his heart, he couldn't help thinking how amusing those words were. "All right, it's my honor, young master." Perhaps it was because of the victory. Yu Qijing was in a very good mood. He felt that Yan Bai's straightforward nature suited his liking. He patted Yan Bai on the shoulder again. "The military camp really is the best place to temper a man. Seeing how much you've changed, I'm quite pleased. I won't say much more. I can tell you're not very comfortable here. I'm off. See you in Chang'an another day." At that moment, Yu Baolin stepped out from behind Yu Qijing. Clutched in his arms was a spear over a meter long. Once Yu Qijing's figure disappeared, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, just like Yan Bai. "Here, this is for you." Yu Baolin handed the spear to Yan Bai. Yan Bai examined it carefully. Marveling silently, he asked in confusion, "Isn't the spearhead of this thing too long? It's almost like someone welded a sword onto it." Yu Baolin saw that Yan Bai didn't recognize this weapon and said with a proud smile, "This is a horse spear." As a fan of cold weapons, Yan Bai didn't know a thing or two about horse spears. The horse spear is also called a Yan Bai lance. It's a weapon exclusively for cavalry. With 8 edges, it has prominent armor-piercing ridges. It's mainly used against heavy cavalry and armored warhorses. Its length is close to 4 meters. But the one Yu Baolin gave him now was only a little over a meter long. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem right. So he asked in confusion, "A horse spear isn't this short, is it?" Yu Baolin scratched his head. "No, it isn't this short. My father said it was seized from Ashide Wuma Chu. He said this is a horse spear. Part of the shaft seems to have been damaged, so it ended up this short. You should be right about that. I know you also have a great interest in martial arts, so I just mentioned it, and my father ordered me to give it to you." The army only rested at the camp for a single night. Before dawn the next day, they set out again. This time, Yan Bai didn't oversleep, watching the cavalry silently packing their gear in the darkness. He felt a lump in his throat, as if his heart was choked. The pressure built until his chest ached, and his eyes burned red despite himself. In that moment, Yan Bai suddenly understood. The lines from the Ballad of Milan. "Generals die in 100 battles. Brave men return after 10 years. Yan Bai knew what these men were heading into, and he understood what would happen next. 2 Turkic forces had already gathered at the Wei River. Their blades pointed straight at Chang'an. These Turks would be intimidated by Li Shimon's delaying tactics and forge an alliance on the bridge, slaying a white horse to seal the oath. Then the Great Tang would smoothly reach the first year of Jingguan. All of this would happen without deviation. But the soldiers marching from the camp didn't know that. They only knew they were going to kill Turks. They knew they might die. From the moment they left the camp, everyone faced it with the determination to die. After all, The Turkic forces were overwhelming. It was practically a siege at the city gates. Yan Bai couldn't bear such a cold, deathly atmosphere. Yet he felt restless if he didn't do something about it. Under Yuchi Baolin's astonished gaze, he scrambled up the watchtower. Taking a deep breath, he suddenly roared. In this battle, the Turkic dogs will surely retreat. The great Tang will triumph. Yuchi Jingda lifted his head, looking at Yan Bai up high. Pushing up his visor, he grinned, then suddenly pounded his breastplate with his fist. Victory! The soldiers couldn't help but straighten up, hammering their breastplates. The deafening roar caused the ground to tremble slightly. Victory! At the same time, a small squad set out from Chang'an, heading toward the Wei River. On the 28th day of the 8th month of the 9th year of the Wuda reign, Jie Khan arrived at the banks of the Wei River. Li Shimin spoke with Jie across the Wei River. He rebuked him for breaking their treaty. Soon, the troops of the left and right martial guards arrived one after another. Seeing the grand and majestic appearance of the Tang army, Jie Khan, and learning that Jishur Sili had been captured, became greatly terrified. He requested a truce, and an imperial decree granted it. Li Shimin returned to the palace that same day. On the 30th day, Li Shimin again went to the Bian Bridge. He and Jie Khan killed a white horse to seal their oath. The Turks retreated. The Turkic dogs are gone. They left after abducting our people. Yuchi Baolin gazed northward, gnashing his teeth. Yan Bai watched as another wounded man's body turned to ashes in the hearth, and whispered, "Just wait. In a few more years, we men of the Great Tang will surely wipe out their entire race, destroy their kingdom, and exterminate their descendants." Yuchi Baolin carried a bundle of dry firewood and set it aside, then clapped his hands. "The Grand General said our battalion can return to Chang'an. Why must you insist on delaying a few days? It's barely been a day since only one left. We need to delay a few days to let them recover. With all the jostling, more people will fail to hold up. More will die along the way." Yuchi Baolin nodded. "That makes sense. Then we'll stay a few more days. Anyway, there's nothing pressing back in Chang'an. It's actually more relaxing out here in the wild." Danyo's wound was already scabbing over. The once cheerful and easygoing man had suddenly become cautious. Not only did he make himself a crutch, but he also strictly followed Yan Bai's rules. Eyelids must be washed with warm water every day, and he had to drink a full basin of honeysuckle infusion daily. In his own words, he had thought his leg was ruined. Now it had nearly recovered. Although Captain Yin said there would be an ugly scar, he himself believed a man without a scar is hardly a man. Huang Shan, who had been slashed on the buttocks, also had astonishing recovery abilities. His wounds were also scabbing over. When the flesh regrew, it would itch a bit. Many times he wanted to scratch it vigorously, but whenever he thought of Yan Bai's warning, when he couldn't bear it, he would slap himself in the face and then hobble over on his crutches to scratch his horse's itch. He Yijing was now feeling a bit frustrated. The medicine boy who came with him no longer obeyed his orders. Having been accustomed to a life where clothes were brought and food was served, he now felt as if he were in a boundless sea of suffering. Not only did he have to prepare and dig for medicinal herbs every day, but he also had to get up in the middle of the night to check on the wounded. The most infuriating thing was that although he was the hardest working, everyone only remembered Yan Bai's kindness. He couldn't compete with Yan Bai in this regard. Yesterday, a letter arrived from the Imperial Medical Bureau. The content of the letter was extremely simple and clear. His superior told him in very harsh words that he must follow Yan Bai's arrangements obediently, because the director said the pillar of the Yin family was already writing history, and asked if he should record the skill of saving people with plant ash. This gave the director of the Imperial Medical Bureau nightmares, even in sleep. In the Zichin Hall, Li Er rarely showed a smile. "Today I've stolen a moment of leisure to chat with you for a while here," he said with a sly grin. "Is it about your grandnephew that you've come?" Yan Jishan awkwardly clasped his hands. "Can't I just come to chat with your majesty?" Li Er waved his hand. "Don't I know the Yin family's temperament? Even your home is in Tsuchi Ward, the farthest from the palace. If you were willing to come chat with me, I'd be happy even if we never discuss state affairs. I'm a full 12 years younger than your grandson Shurdu. Don't play games with your student. Whatever you have to say, just give the order." Yin Jishan let out a soft sigh. "My elder brother was 45 when he finally had a son. My nephew only had his son Yan Bai at the age of 53. The Yan family was divided into 3 branches, but now only 2 remain. Yan Bai is the sole heir of my eldest brother's branch. It's rather embarrassing to say, but before my eldest brother passed, he entrusted this child to me. I then handed this child over to Shirgu to look after. And because my eldest brother had a son late in life, Yan Bai, though young in age, holds a high seniority in the family. He is of the same generation as Shirgu's younger generation. Once the younger children in the family grew up, they couldn't get along with him anymore. Over time, this child's temperament became rather unsatisfactory. He dislikes studying but loves practicing martial arts. This time, sneaking off alone to Jingyang gave his elder brother and sister-in-law quite a scare. Although dying in battle is considered honorable, if he leaves no descendants behind, how am I supposed to face my eldest brother when I close my eyes? I also went to Duke Yuqi's residence when he came. I chatted briefly with him at the door. I heard that this child has changed quite a lot this time. He said it was as if he had become a different person. Now that I know we are safe, I came today to ask your majesty, don't deceive an old man like me, who already has 1 foot in the grave. Just tell me the truth. Has Yan Bai truly come to his senses? Or are you protecting the face of my Yin family by not telling the truth? Li Er smiled wryly upon hearing this. Waving his hand, the well-trained eunuch immediately brought a scroll of manuscript. Master Yin, look, frankly speaking, if not for the secret letter from the Bai Chi, I wouldn't have dared to believe that Yan Bai could have such skill. He alleviated the suffering of everyone in the injury camp, with methods so incredible that even he, Guanjing, head of the Imperial Medical Office, marveled. And that's saying, only through sacrifice can great ambition be realized. Daring to call for the sun and moon to create a new sky, it's truly full of heroic spirit. Now I hear that under his lead and treatment, only a total of 17 wounded soldiers have died, compared to the post-war death toll from injuries before. The number of deaths among the wounded under his management is far less than before. It doesn't even reach a fraction of the previous number. Do you know that, esteemed elder? The day before yesterday, after seeing this news, I finally had a good night's sleep. The Great Tang has never been easy, and now it's even harder. Every life spared brings me 1 more measure of peace. After Yin Dishan finished reading the report from the 100 Horsemen Bureau, his hands couldn't help trembling slightly. He couldn't help murmuring to himself, Heaven has opened its eyes. Heaven has opened its eyes. The wounded camp now has 347 injured soldiers, of which 178 can walk. Subtracting those who can walk, the rest are all bedridden. Ever since the officials of Jingyang County learned of a garrison camp at the foot of the mountain where the Wei and Jing rivers meet, they sent various foods and tools and gathered all the hunters in Jingyang County, ordering them to hunt in the mountains, to provide nutrition for the wounded soldiers. With the tools, everything in the wounded soldiers' camp quickly changed. The most direct change was that no wounded soldier had to lie on the ground anymore. Instead, each got a simple wooden bed, a bed made of tree vines and wooden sticks. Yan Bai's life started to become more regular, checking wounds, cooking meals, learning herbal medicine knowledge from He Guanjing. At night, he would spar with Yuqi Baolin to practice martial arts. At such times, the entire valley echoed with Yan Bai's agonized howls. Hit someone but don't hit the face. Damn, here it comes again. Soon Yan Bai couldn't hold on. At this moment, all the brothers in the wounded camp, those with good legs walked over. Those with bad legs crawled over with their hands. 2 major domos fighting each other. For them, this was a rare form of entertainment. At this time, all the wounded soldiers turned into teachers. One after another, they pointed out Yan Bai's shortcomings in their earlier sparring. Adjutant Yan, you must remember this. A martial artist's root lies in the feet, generated from the legs, stored in the waist, shaped in the fingers, moving from the lower body upward, complete and connected my ass. Don't listen to Danyui's nonsense, Captain. We garrison soldiers only need to remember one word. That's courage. On the battlefield, the one who fears death less is the one who survives. The more you fear death, the quicker you die. Bullshit. Danyui stood up leaning on his wooden staff. Without a solid foundation and a strong body, you'll be done for in the first charge. Courage? Comparing who's less afraid of death. Huh? I say we need a sturdy body. Wear thick, heavy armor. wield a horse-slaying sword, and kill gods and demons alike. Dondu was quite unconvinced. He sneered, "One single lance will skewer you through the heart." "Bullshit." Dania banged his crutch loudly. "We're just common soldiers. How could we afford such a thing? You think a lance is a bamboo stick? You can't just cut one down and use it." Again. Bruelotus. Nothing can stop me." "Oh shit." Everyone saw Yan Bai charge again. They quickly stopped their discussion. All eyes were fixed on the two figures leaping and dodging not far away. In the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Yan Bai lay on the ground, panting like an ox. Clearly, he was the one being dominated. Yet there was not a trace of frustration on his face. No one knew why. Yan Bai only felt that his current physique was remarkably good. "Still want to fight?" Yuchi Baolin looked down from above, full of pride. "No more," Yan Bai replied. "Let me rest for a night, recharge my energy, and tomorrow I'll duel with the hero again." Yuchi Baolin lit the mugwort. As the smoke rose, he plopped his big but down on the ground. So boring." Suddenly, as if thinking of something, he looked at Yan Bai. "You're a scholar. Why don't you tell us some stories of old?" Yan Bai was completely confused. "What stories of old?" "Telling tales, stories." "Let me think." Seeing everyone's eyes suddenly fix on him, Yan Bai couldn't bear to refuse. He racked his brains for a moment. "Then how about I tell you one? A story called The Smiling, Proud Wanderer? How does that sound?" Yuchi Baolin couldn't help but sit up straight. Just the name sounds thrilling. "Come on, start it." Ahem, ahem. Yan Bai cleared his throat. Then he said, "Let me start with the first chapter. The massacre." Everyone's breath caught. They couldn't help adjusting to a comfortable position. The first chapter sounded so exciting just from the title. Full of anticipation, then the story inside must be even more thrilling. A gentle breeze rustled the willows, the fragrance of flowers intoxicating. On the plaque above the gate were written, "For golden characters, Fuwei Escort Agency." Yan Bai began to tell the tale unhurriedly. These rough men had never heard such simple, straightforward, yet immensely powerful storytelling. It was far better than the tales told by the storytellers in the tea houses of Chang'an. Easily understood, but the story is still quite strange. It immediately captured everyone's attention. Then this man named Yu held Wanner's chin. He clicked his tongue in admiration, saying that the girl's figure was beautiful, but her face was covered in pockmarks. At this moment, Lin Pingji was furious. He slammed the table hard, shouting angrily, "Where did this wild dog come from, daring to bark here?" That man named Yu smiled at the remark. He shot back, "Which sissy are you calling a dog?" In the night, the chirping of insects gradually faded away. Even the annoying mosquitoes stopped bothering everyone. Yan Bai yawned one after another. He kept rubbing his eyes. Several times he couldn't help but want to stop talking and just get a good night's sleep. But whenever he looked up and saw the eager eyes of the crowd, Yan Bai felt that if he stopped now, he would surely be guilty of countless sins. Guilt-laden, he forced himself to go on for a bit more. Lin Jinan felt that this time his family was doomed. So he came up with an idea. Change his son's clothes into a servant's outfit to sneak him out of the manor. When dawn broke and the gates were opened. If you want to know what happens next, listen to the next chapter for the breakdown. Good night, brothers. Yuchi Baolin gave a big yawn. These Lin family folks are so dumb, so many of them have died already. Couldn't they just gather everyone in the ancestral hall? With so many people together, how could the enemy divide and conquer them? Also, I think this Lin residence is nothing special. The Lin family has built up such a thick fortune over generations. Surely they have a secret passage or something. Even if there's no secret passage, just gather everyone together, grab some weapons, and fight to the bitter, and the enemy wouldn't get off easy either. Oh dear, Yuchi Baolin suddenly covered his mouth, because he saw Yan Bai rolling his eyes. Do you still want to hear the rest? Listen, then keep your mouth shut. Sleep. Yuchi Baolin brought a large bundle of mugwort, sprinkled it with water, then spread it over the nearly burn-out mugwort fire. Really, telling a story and stopping halfway. Let me tell you, if I ran into someone like you in a tea house, I wouldn't even need to raise a hand. Others would tear his meal ticket to shreds. Hearing Yan Bai's snoring start, Yuchi Baolin looked at Yan Bai and shook his head. How strange. How could a decent man like him end up with the reputation of a ne'er-do-well in Chang'an? I just can't figure it out. Unless you're doing it on purpose? No, that can't be. Really strange. Yuchi Baolin didn't bother to think further. Closed his eyes. Old he, you take the first half of the night, wake me for the second half. Remember, don't let the campfires go out. All right, Captain Yuchi. He once stood up, stroking his beard, and couldn't help but take another look at Yan Bai. Smacked his lips and muttered quietly. The story is quite strange. What a pity, I underestimated him before. The sun was bright, and Yan Bai was in a good mood, because since last night, he had finally not heard any news of the wounded passing away quietly. It's really bad being out in the wild. The mosquitoes are damn many. His body was covered in mosquito bites. But strangely, they didn't itch much. He took a cool bath in the small river. It instantly washed away his morning grumpiness. Seeing Dainyu throw away his crutch and also prepare to go into the river, Yan Bai quickly shouted to stop him. Dainyu, you're forgetting the pain once the wound heals, aren't you? It's only been a few days, and you want to go into the river? What if it gets infected and inflamed? Do you want to die? Do you still want to get a wife? Dainyu tugged at his loincloth. He smiled bitterly and said, I don't want to either. But ergo, that son of a bitch said I have a stinky crotch. If I don't wash up now, how can I face people later? Yan Bai stood up from the water and shook off the water from his body haphazardly. Which is more important, facing people or your life? Get out, get out. There are water monkeys in the river. If you dare to go in the water, I'll break your legs. I think you're the water monkey yourself. Just then, Yuchi Baolin hurried over, stood by the small river, and shouted loudly. Stop washing, hurry up. There are many carriages coming down the mountain, and the guards are endless. Could it be they've come to take us home? Or maybe some fool from the city heard that young master is here, and came especially to visit. Watching Yuchi Baolin chatter nonstop, Yan Bai couldn't help but want to laugh. See, even with all those stubble grown out, he's still like a child. Yan Bai grinned, but then felt a bit troubled. The wilderness now isn't like the wilderness of later generations. There are many places here that haven't been civilized. Although the scenery is nice, it's also full of dangers. These past few days, someone has been catching spicy strips every day. As Yan Bai lamented the fragility of life, he had been eating snake soup for several days in a row. After getting dressed and waiting a moment, Yellow Tooth suddenly charged into the camp excitedly. I saw it clearly. Reporting to the two commandants. In a nearby procession is the Prince of Zhongshan. There is young Duke Cheng, Li Hui, son of the director of the imperial clan, and Yin Shan, son of Yin, the vice minister of the secretariat. They come by order of His Majesty to visit the warriors fighting for the country. Hearing Yellow Tooth shout, the wounded in the camp began to wail loudly. The crying was truly earth-shattering. It gave Yan Bai a huge fright. He thought another wounded soldier had succumbed and passed away. He quickly rushed into the camp. Seeing that everyone was fine, he let out a long sigh of relief. Yan Bai didn't know why everyone was crying. After eavesdropping for a while, he slowly came to understand. It turned out he had heard the emperor sent someone to visit. Crying with emotion, Yan Bai leaned against a tree trunk. Rubbing his smooth chin, he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Could it be that later Korea learned this from the Great Tang? Just as Yan Bai was deep in thought, squad after squad of mighty soldiers and rows of horse-drawn carriages entered the camp in an orderly fashion. Good heavens, no wonder Yuchi Baolin said the procession had no end in sight. This camp that originally could hold 3,000 cavalry was now packed full with these visitors. Watching these people start to unload chest after chest of copper coins from the carts and silk fabrics, Yan Bai's eyes nearly popped out. Shouldn't they be unloading nutritional supplies or medicinal herbs for wounds at a time like this? At that moment, the crowd suddenly parted to make way. A very exquisite and grand carriage from which a young boy stepped out. He looked to be just over 10 years old, wearing a golden crown and robes of dark gold. In Yan Bai's astonished gaze, Yuchi Baolin suddenly rushed over. Kneeling on one knee, he cupped his fists in salute. Yuchi Baolin pays respects to the Prince of Zhongshan. The young man nodded. Yuchi Baolin stood up. Then, bending over, his face plastered with a fawning smile. His lips moved up and down. He was quietly introducing something. As Yuchi Baolin pointed his hand, the young man in yellow robes walked quickly towards Yan Bai. Just as Yan Bai was considering whether to bow in the same manner as Yuchi Baolin, the young man suddenly clasped his hands and bowed. My father heard that Captain Yin has divine skills in saving lives and healing wounds in a military camp. but he is too occupied with state affairs to get away. Before leaving, he specially ordered me to come and thank you in person. Sir, you are truly talented. I, Li Changxian, on behalf of all the soldiers, request that Captain Yan accept our salute. Li Changxian. This child is Li Changxian, the Li Changxian who likes men. Under the gaze of the crowd, Yan Bai slowly straightened his back. He cupped his hands and said, "It was a mere effort, a trivial matter, all within my duty. The praise from your majesty and the Prince of Zhongshan truly embarrasses me. I hardly deserve such generous gifts. Truly humbled, truly humbled. Politeness and empty words, purely formal speeches." But seeing Yan Bai so understanding, the crowd couldn't help but sigh in relief. Just as Yan Bai thought things were about to wrap up, another figure approached. He looked to be in his 20s, gentle and refined, with a scroll tucked under his arm. Under Yan Bai's shocked and bewildered gaze, he bowed and said, "Your nephew, Yin Shan, pays respects to my uncle." "Your nephew? Uncle? Good heavens, I don't know this big nephew at all." Yin Shan gave Yan Bai a once-over, then lowered his head, pondering silently. It seems just as the elder said. His uncle had indeed changed a great deal. His brow no longer showed the earlier restlessness. Instead, there was a newfound steadiness. It seemed the military camp was truly a place that tempered a person. Yin Shan decided to observe a bit more. He would write a letter home in the evening. First, to reassure the elders. Second, to report Uncle Yan Bai's changes to his father and the elders. Li Changxian finished praising Yan Bai, then went to the wounded soldiers' camp. He pulled out a scroll of imperial edict and began to read it in a childish voice. The wording of the imperial edict was profound. Yan Bai only understood arduous toil and great merit, toiling for the country, and so on. The wounded soldiers' camp was filled with sobs. Many struggled to get up and bow. Fortunately, Li Changxian was perceptive. He knew that these people were all wounded. He explained before reading the edict. Otherwise, several wounded soldiers would leave the world tomorrow due to reopened wounds. Li Changxian completed both tasks. At that moment, a loud voice shouted from the crowd, "By order of the entire army, set up camp and rest." Acknowledged. Moments later, the camp was filled with tents. The camp, which had just been devoid of murderous intent, suddenly became stern and strict again. Yin Shan followed closely behind Yan Bai, never leaving his side. Wherever Yan Bai went, he followed. Those who knew thought they were uncle and nephew. Those who didn't might think they were father and son. "Uncle, you're really different from before." Every time he heard the word uncle, Yan Bai couldn't help but shiver. This Yin Shan had many questions. He had no sense of being a junior at all, but not answering was not an option. Yan Bai felt that would be too rude. It said, "I've gotten darker, right?" What he feared most was explaining his identity. How to explain that? If he said it, he might be taken for a ghost possessing someone and be burned or drowned in a pond. Yin Shan nodded. "Yeah, a bit darker, but you look more steady and composed than before." "What a sin." Yin Shan smiled. The ancestor asked when you plan to return home. He said that if you truly turn over a new leaf this time and start afresh, he will make you kneel in the ancestral hall as punishment. At this point, Yin Shan suddenly remembered something, then continued, "You've been away from home for half a month. Before you left, the ancestor said, you want me to supervise you in catching up on the past half-month studies." "What else?" Yin Shan didn't hear the impatience in Yan Bai's voice. He went on, "The ancestor also said that in the past, he was too strict with you in your studies, which led to certain shortcomings in your character. He said that from now on, the studies will be lighter. As for your character, he has decided to move out of the ancestral hall and personally teach you. When I came this time, I not only brought books, but also brought your favorite nine-tailed fox and Fainu. Throw away the old set of brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. This time I brought a set bestowed by His Majesty. Oh, and at home, they've been looking for a martial arts teacher for you. When His Majesty heard about it, he arranged for you to go to the palace, study alongside all the Imperial Guard's commanders. This time, besides delivering the message, I also brought your favorite dates and pastries. Worried you might not like the tea outside, Uncle specially prepared Fuyang tea for you. Oh, and Annie knows you can't stand the heat, so she had artisans make you the popular silk robes, and many more. I was afraid you'd be upset if there weren't enough, so I brought everything over." The Turks left, and Annie departed too, heading to Hebei's circuit. She wept bitterly as she left, saying the next time she sees you, she might not even remember your face. Yin Shan, like a head steward, recounted every detail without omission. The more Yan Bai listened, the more conflicted he felt inside. This overwhelming love. How could one accept it with ease? I am Yan Bai, but not the Yan Bai in their hearts. Ah, what a tragedy, Yan Bai. Come, let me introduce you to a few fools to get to know. Yuchi Baolin's shout gave Yan Bai an excuse to leave. He apologized to Yan Shan. Then he quickly ran toward Yuchi Baolin. Yan Shan watched Yan Bai's retreating figure, breathed a sigh of relief, and a satisfied smile curled at the corners of his mouth. He murmured, he's grown up. His uncle had finally grown up. The blockhead Yuchi Baolin had mentioned was actually Cheng Huaima. Cheng Youzhen is Song. When Yan Bai saw him, he felt completely unsettled. At about 15 or 16, he was nearly 1.9 meters tall, standing there like a brown bear on its hind legs. If he was already this tall and burly, how tall and burly must his father Cheng Yaojin be? No wonder men like Cheng Yaojin were called peerless fierce generals. To make a comparison, just imagine, on the battlefield, a man over 2 meters tall, weighing over 100 kilograms, wielding a decorated battle axe, mounting a war horse and letting out a thunderous roar. Fuck! Then he charges at you with murderous intent. You, a mere infantryman just over 5 feet 10 inches, how are you supposed to resist? A slap across your face can knock your brains out. Don't even think about fighting back. You'd have to look up just to meet his eyes. The sheer size of him is overwhelming. Yan Bai, come on, you have a spar with that brute Cheng. It'll definitely teach you a thing or two. Seeing the malicious grin on Yuchi Baolin's face, Yan Bai shook his head like a rattle drum. Bullshit, teach you a thing or two. You're just itching to eat at my funeral feast. I'm not falling for that. What's a funeral feast? Cheng Huaima scratched his head in confusion. In a low voice, Yuchi Baolin eagerly chimed in to answer. A funeral feast is the banquet after someone dies. Cheng Huaima grinned and said, you're quite funny with your words. Interesting, interesting. But don't worry. I'm very careful with my strength. Absolutely won't beat you to death or injure you. Come on, Captain Yin, let's have a match. Just treat it as killing time for fun. Exactly, we're all brothers in the same camp. Just a friendly match. It's not like anyone's going to die. Right, Captain Yin, give it a try. Give it a try. Yan Bai didn't know if he was possessed or had lost his mind. In a moment of impulse, he actually went to compete with Cheng the Fool. As a result, he didn't even have a chance to regret it. How could Yan Bai's weakling body compete with Cheng Huaima, who was like a bear? This match was like the game of eagle catching chicks without a mother hen. Cheng Huaima was the eagle. Yan Bai was the chick. In just a few rounds, all of Yan Bai's strength was drained. Can't compare, can't fight, can't outrun either. With a slight lift of his arm, Cheng Huaima could easily toss Yan Bai to the ground. Many times, Yan Bai secretly made up his mind. This time, after falling, he absolutely wouldn't get up. But somehow, after falling, she stubbornly got back up. Then, staggering, she charged at Cheng Huaima again, throwing punches, kicking, turning over. Yan Bai no longer had the strength to stand up. Staring at the starry sky, Yan Bai said weakly, I'm out of strength. I surrender. Cheng Huaima wiped the sweat from his face haphazardly. Kneeling beside Yan Bai, he praised, you do have some strength though. It's a pity you don't know any techniques. Otherwise, you could have held out a bit longer. Yan Bai smiled. Being able to last this long already satisfies me. Cheng Huaima frowned upon hearing this. I thought Baolin was lying to me. I didn't expect you to have really changed your temperament. Hearing those words from you makes me see you in a new light. Now you seem a bit like a real man. Yan Bai smiled. Could you do me a favor? Carry me into the shed. I want to sleep, she said, looking at the distant firelight. Staring at the dark, shadowy outline of the distant high mountain, Yan Bai's eyelids grew heavier and heavier. Slowly, the sound of snoring began to rise. When he opened his eyes again, what met his gaze was a clear blue sky. Clouds drifted at the edge of the heavens. Savoring the feeling carefully, Yan Bai realized that this sleep was the most comfortable he had ever had in his life. It was as if he had been given anesthesia. Suddenly, he knew nothing at all. At that moment, the sky before him was completely blocked by a childish little face. Yan Bai, who was still relishing this strange sensation, wished he could slap that little face. Li Shangqian, how dare you? Is the name of Prince Zhongshan something a lowly commandant like you can utter? Why don't you kneel and apologize this instant? A young eunuch of 13 or 14, waving his arms and dancing about, his handsome little face flushed red with anger, was shouting at Yan Bai with a fierce tone but weak resolve. How dare you? A mere eunuch like you dares to scold my uncle? Believe it or not, I will immediately turn my horse around and go back to the palace. I'll go ask the palace attendants bureau how exactly they taught you. The Prince of Zhongshan did not speak, but you dare to speak. I want to ask who taught you about etiquette and hierarchy. Don't you know the rules anymore? The young eunuch might not know Yan Bai, but he knew Yan Shan of the Yan family. Hearing Yan Shan's scolding, he trembled all over in fear. Then he looked at Li Changxian pitifully. Li Changxian apologized to Yan Shan with a cupped fist salute. He turned his head and said to the young eunuch, "Go receive 20 military lashes." Yes. The young eunuch left. It seemed he really went to receive the military lashes. This was Yan Bai's first time seeing a eunuch, and she couldn't help but be curious. "I've heard of Yan Bai, but you seem a bit different from what I've heard." Li Changxian stood under the awning. Looking a bit shy, Yan Bai asked curiously, "What kind of person did you hear I was?" Li Changxian smiled, shook his head, a bit embarrassed to say, "But hearing is not as reliable as seeing. After meeting you today, I find you're different from what others said. By the way, I checked the wounds of the injured this morning. How did you come up with the idea of stitching wounds with hair? And that hygiene management thing? The primary measure to prevent infection. Did you come up with all these?" Yan Bai sat up. "I didn't come up with them." "Then how did they come about?" "Oh, I see. You must have learned them from books." "I suppose so," Yan Bai nodded. "Then can they be promoted in the army in the future?" Li Changxian thought for a moment. A bit shy, he spoke softly. "This is what my father asked me to ask. Actually, it's also the reason I came this time." Yan Bai thought, this is truly an honest child. "Sure," Yan Bai agreed without a second thought. It seemed his situation was already irreversible. "Since there's no going back, I need to make proper plans." Even Li Er had the future crown prince deliver the message. "I have enough sense to read the situation. Besides, deep down, I'm also willing. What if this thing turns out to be something remarkable? Then I'll have contributed, won't I? And that would be a tremendous achievement." "Did you really agree just like that?" Li Changxian couldn't quite understand. It also baffled him. Clearly, his father had said that those extraordinary techniques were the lifeblood of powerful families. Even if they were willing to hand them over, they would demand an equivalent exchange from a court, seeking sufficient benefits in return. But when it came to Yan Bai, he had merely served as a messenger, never expecting Yan Bai to agree without a second thought. This made young Li Changxian feel a bit unreal. "Don't believe me? Come on, pinky swear." Yan Bai took Li Changxian's hand, and they hooked their pinkies together. "Pinky swear if I lie to you, I'm a dog. Let's seal it with a thumbprint." Their thumbs pressed firmly together. Li Changxian looked down at his own thumb. A strange feeling suddenly surged in his heart. It wasn't a feeling of superiority or inferiority. It was more like an equal relationship. No flatte, no psicopancy. It was so natural and casual, as if it was always meant to be this way. "You won't regret it?" Yan Bai stood up. "What's there to regret? If you can build on this foundation and expand it further, that's what I'd most hope to see. To be honest, what I've learned is just the tip of the iceberg. If your Majesty finds it useful, then it will be useful for the vast number of soldiers. Besides, this is really nothing special. There's nothing to regret." Watching Yan Bai walk away with a wooden basin, Li Changxian clasped his hands toward Yan Shan. "Do we need to consult the elder's thoughts?" Yan Shan patted his bottom and stood up. "There's nothing to ask. If Yan Bai agrees, we agree." This was Li Changxian's first time bathing in a river. It was also the first time he bathed alone without palace maids or eunuchs attending him. This time, he had been talked into it. In his young mind, all the information he had about bathing was don't play by the river. Don't play in cold water, just like all parents say. He also clearly remembered that there were unclean things in the water. But today, he simply couldn't resist Yan Bai's temptation. The coolness of the river washed away the heat from his body. Watching Yan Bai and Chung the Fool, Yuchi Baolin was having a water fight in the waist-deep river, diving, catching fish, and grabbing crabs. Li Changxian's heart yearned for it, but years of education kept silently telling him in his heart, "You are a prince, your every word and deed sets an example. Must always maintain an unruffled demeanor. Must wear a faint smile, be gentle and refined. Must remain calm in all matters, possess elegance. Must. Only when alone does he allow himself to secretly ponder his own thoughts. To envy his younger siblings. To envy his cousins. Because they're so carefree, so at ease. How he wishes he were not the Prince of Zhongshan. Not the eldest son of the family. Not the son of his majesty. If not, then he could play a little longer. Could he be a bit more free? He watches the laughing crowd. Can only feel envy. Watching Li Changqian playing in the river, sitting steadily in the water. Yan Bai can't help but sigh inwardly. After all, he is just a child. Yet now, there is not a trace of the vitality a child should have. Instead, he exudes an aged, declining aura. It's heartbreaking to see. After a moment of thought, Yan Bai suddenly let out a loud shout. He thrust both hands forward toward Li Changqian. Li Changqian, take my cloud-pushing palm. Water splashed everywhere, and Li Changqian was drenched like a drowned rat. Everyone was stunned. Cheng Huaimao muttered in disbelief. Oh my God, that cowardly streak of his is acting up again, isn't it? Li Hui's face turned pale. His hands were trembling slightly. This counts as an assault, doesn't it? Yuchi Baolin held his head. This military camp reform isn't working out. What a disaster. The eunuch on the shore, anxious beyond measure, started shouting at the top of his lungs. Yan Bai is so bold. Yan Bai is so bold. Oh dear, my prince. Please get up. The water is cold. Oh dear, this is deadly. Oh dear, I can't survive this. Seeing Li Changqian still standing there dumbfounded, Yan Bai turned around and kicked his legs with all his might. Tough guy, huh? Indestructible diamond body, is it? Then try my wind god kick again. Li Changqian's leaps diktanat. The young eunuch on the shore was so frightened he nearly fainted. He screamed at the top of his lungs. His voice was both shrill and loud. It was absolutely unbearable. Yan Bai couldn't stand the noise. He stood up directly and yanked the young eunuch into the water. You already smell of urine. Don't you know how to wash yourself? Come on, let me help you, ah? Gurgle, gurgle. Yan Bai watched the young eunuch floundering in the water. He found it extremely amusing. He turned around and splashed a handful of water precisely onto Li Changqian's face. Come on, don't hold back. Fight back, young man. No boy can resist playing in the water in summer. Li Changqian was no exception. Provoked repeatedly by Yan Bai, he soon began to fight back, kicking, splashing, thrashing about in the water. Somehow, Yuchi Baolin also jumped into the fray. It seemed he was on Li Changqian's side. Cheng Huaimao claimed Yan Bai had stepped on his foot. He suddenly joined the melee too. Water splashed wildly all over their faces. Yan Bai was beaten so much he couldn't open his eyes. Yan Shan, clutching a book on the shore, could no longer hold back. He bellowed, "How dare you bully my uncle?" Saying, "I'm coming." He also jumped into the water with a splash, then swam far away, letting out a comfortable groan. Li Hui, seeing himself as the only neutral party, also shouted, "Prince of Zhongshan, I've come to rescue you." Yan Shan wiped the water off his face and threatened Li Hui, "Think carefully. I am your teacher. Are you planning to kill your teacher and destroy your ancestors?" Li Hui gritted his teeth and turned to come over to Yan Bai's side. The situation now became 3 against 3. Don't let their tall, sturdy builds fool you. Their 3-man team had a fatal weakness. That weakness was Li Changqian. As long as they recklessly attacked Li Changqian, the 3 of them would get flustered and would be completely unable to mount a counterattack. On the other side, except for Li Hui, who seemed like a traitor holding back, uncle and nephew Yan Bai and Yan Shan were truly having a blast. Their jubilant cheers shook the heavens, causing even the patrolling soldiers nearby to turn their heads in envy. At this moment, Li Changqian was trembling with excitement. He kept murmuring to himself, "So fun, so fun. What fun." The 6 of them played wildly in the water until they were exhausted. They crawled ashore and changed into dry clothes, then found a shady spot, each holding a bowl of freshly cooled ginger tea. Li Changqian took a sip, finding the taste quite good. He couldn't help but take a big gulp. Li Changqian asked curiously, "You even prepared ginger tea in advance. Did you plan for me to go into the water?" Yan Bai replied without turning around, "You wish. I just like playing in the water, and I'm afraid of catching a cold, so I always boil a pot before going in. It has nothing to do with whether you go in or not." Seeing no one else around, Li Changqian suddenly siga. "Today has been the happiest day of my life. I really hope this isn't a dream." Yan Bai asked curiously. You're now the Prince of Zhongshan, and soon you'll be the crown prince, second only to the emperor, above all others. Aren't you happy? Li Chengxian shook his head. You're asking what you already know. After I became the Prince of Zhongshan, ever since I came of age, there have always been people telling me how to smile, how to walk, how to eat, how to talk to people, how to study hard. Everything about me is managed by someone. Someone is always nagging. Do you think such a life is happy? The doubts in my heart were resolved. So the royal education is this twisted. Even talking and walking are monitored by someone. That's terrifying. Isn't this treating a person like a puppet? Yan Bai shook his head vigorously. Not happy. But I think study and play don't have to conflict. Study is study, play is play. The two should be separated. Li Chengxian smiled and shook his head. Everything is understood without words. Yan Bai didn't ask further. It's best not to pry into the emperor's family matters. Otherwise, one day a big accusation might come down and ruin everything. He patted his butt and stood up. Yan Bai prepared to go check on the injured camp. I still need to nag a bit about the points that need attention. Otherwise, these people will forget they're injured. After making the rounds, Yan Bai nodded with satisfaction. Everything was progressing in a positive direction. These garrison soldiers had surprisingly strong constitutions. Without antibiotics or anti-inflammatory drugs, they actually managed to pull through, and their wounds were all scabbing over. With the situation looking so good, Yan Bai's mood rarely lifted as well. What are you humming? It sounds nice. Yan Bai paused, then smiled. 13 kisses, little uncle. Where are you heading now? I'm tired from playing in the water, going to sleep for a bit. What is up? Got something? Yin Shan hurried over. Yeah, hurry up and take your Feinu and Zhou away. I can't keep an eye on them. Yin Shan had mentioned Zhou and Feinu more than once, and Yan Bai finally got to see them. Feinu was a flock of pigeons. A flock of pigeons that Yan Bai had trained. As for Nine Tails, that's a different story. To be precise, it's a wild beast. It looks like a cat, but isn't, and like a leopard, but not quite. Its tail is short, and the tips of its ears have a prominent tuft of fur. At first, I thought it was a fox. But on second glance, how could it be a fox? It's clearly a lynx, for goodness sake. Now this wild beast is frantically licking Yan Bai's face. It keeps making a continuous whining sound, as if it's acting spoiled. Its name is Nine Tails. Yan Bai turns his face away. He uses his hand to block the lynx's outstretched tongue. Ah, it's Nine Tails. Uncle, you named it yourself, surely you haven't forgotten? Yan Bai shook his head. I said I forgot. Little nephew, do you believe your uncle's words? Yin Shan looked at the lynx, which was only affectionate towards Yan Bai. He shook his head helplessly. He always felt that being called little nephew sounded awkward. Believe me, just let bygones be bygones. I'm telling the truth, Yin Shan nodded. What I said is also true. Yan Bai looked at Yin Shan, whose gaze was firm. His heart was filled with mixed emotions. Now that I'm here, can this matter be explained in just a few words? Even if I explain clearly, would they believe me? Oh, heavens above. I can't even explain it clearly myself. If I say it out loud, no one would believe a word of it. Uncle, I have to remind you to hurry up on the matter you promised the Prince of Zhongshan. Although this came from the Prince of Zhongshan's mouth, in the end, it will definitely reach His Majesty's desk. I suggest you write it down quickly. Submit it in the form of a memorial. Since we've chosen to do this, we must do it well. So troublesome. Can I just dictate it? Yin Shan took a deep breath. All right, you dictate. I'll write it for you. Yan Bai's face lit up with a smile. Wow, how are you so wonderful? You have me so moved I can barely stand it. Yin Shan took another deep breath, turned her head, and exhaled the stale air from her lungs. Turned back, facing him with a smile. You are my elder, I'm happy to help. It's also my honor. Then let's start now. Yin Shan nodded. All right, let's begin. Under a large tree on the right side of the military camp. Yin Shan would sometimes bend over the table, writing furiously. Sometimes furrow her brow in thought. Sometimes shake her head as if drinking fine nectar. In contrast, Yan Bai was like a lazy donkey at the mill, circling around the tree again and again, sometimes scratching his ears and cheeks, sometimes pulling at his hair, sometimes laughing loudly, sometimes howling. Yuchi Baolin winced in fear. Is studying this life threatening? Li Wei looked at Yin Shan with envy. How to put it? Even if I told you, you wouldn't understand. Looking for a beating? If you don't want to talk, shut your mouth. What do you mean by I can't understand either? Let me tell you, I've read books too. We even have a tutor at home. Li Hui turned his head disdainfully. Still just a rough fellow. Cheng Huaima and Yuchi Baolin had grown up together like brothers. Hearing this, they swaggered up to Li Hui. Towering over him, they said, "Smelly egg." Say that again if you dare. Smelly egg was Li Hui's childhood nickname. As he grew older, he came to hate that nickname more and more. Hearing this, he stiffened his face and said, "Listen up. You're a rough fellow too. Wahaha. This infuriates me. This infuriates me. Li Hui, if you're a man, come fight me. Do you dare?" Cheng Huaima, the reckless, was by no means foolish. If someone else had mocked him, he would have attacked long ago. But he couldn't do that with Li Hui, because Li Hui was Li Chengqian's cousin. In simple terms, Li Xiaogong's grandfather Li Wei and Li Shimin's grandfather Li Bing were brothers. Perhaps it was due to incompatible fates. Cheng Huaima and others had been at odds with Li Hui since childhood, having fought countless times in secret. Although they won more than they lost, no matter the outcome, they would get a severe beating once they got home. Over time, these children of military families understood a truth. You could curse Li Hui, but you couldn't lay a hand on him. The moment you did, your own father would beat you when you return home, because that bastard loved to cry and tattle, knowing that he was of the same clan as His Majesty. If you actually hit Li Hui over a trivial argument, the trouble will be no small matter. You'd definitely get thrashed at home. Cheng Huaima gritted his teeth in hatred. If you've got guts, wait until we're back in Chang'an. Li Hui didn't even bother with that fool Cheng Wu. He turned his head and continued to watch the uncle and nephew with envy. Under the tree, Yan Bai and Yan Shan also started arguing. The main reason was that Yan Shan believed something could be explained in a single sentence. But his uncle insisted on saying 7, 8, 32 sentences. After the wound is opened and cleaned. Sew it up. This sentence is so simple and clear, it can be summarized in one sentence. Why do you, uncle, insist on writing out a whole 1, 2, 3, 4? Isn't that unnecessary? Yan Bai took a deep breath. Yes, one sentence can summarize it. But can you understand it? Can His Majesty understand it? If it's useful and promoted to the army, do you expect those rough men who barely know characters to understand it? Do you expect them to guess my thoughts? To guess how I stitch? If we write it clearly now, they will understand it better. Even though it's all plain language, it won't show the depth of our knowledge. But it's easy to understand at a glance. Even if they follow the steps, they can more or less figure things out. Isn't that good enough? Besides, what we're doing right now could be something very important. If in the future all our precious cultural heritage is summed up in such simple words, then if there's another grassland cavalry invasion, with heads rolling and culture decimated, our descendants in the future will have to guess what that one sentence actually meant. Do you think it's reasonable to summarize such a simple matter with just one sentence? Yan Shan wiped the sweat from his forehead. He realized that he couldn't refute Yan Bai's argument. Thinking about it, it did seem unreasonable. But that's how the rules have been for thousands of years. Yan Bai saw through Yan Shan's thoughts. He decided to just lay it all out clearly. Then they heard Yan Bai continue. In ancient times, our ancestors invented writing. Gradually, we developed the concept of home and country. We would write letters to our families. We would report important matters to the monarch. But back then, the craftsmanship was backward. Ink and brush were scarce. Our ancestors had to ensure they used the fewest words to record the most information. So I guess that habit was preserved by everyone at that time. We all know that in the pre-Qin era, bamboo slips were used. At that time, when ministers reported issues to the king, they naturally used bamboo slips too. If any minister tried to report to the king of Qin in plain vernacular, they would surely be scolded. Not to mention bamboo slips were heavy, and the messengers delivering them would grumble along the way. They would say, "Damn you, your mother. Writing so many words. Why don't you tire yourself to death, you bastard?" Let's think further ahead. The first emperor of Qin wanted to read memorials, but the eunuchs carried in dozens of baskets full of bamboo slips. The first emperor sighed. It looked like he wouldn't be sleeping tonight. The palace concubines would also have to wait in vain through the night. Yan Bai smiled, and Li Chengqian and the others who were eavesdropping also burst out laughing. But Yan Bai changed the subject. But now we have paper. We have plenty of ink, brushes, paper, and inkstones. We possess skills far superior to those of ancient times. All of this is incomparable to the past. But why is everything making progress? When it comes to passing down knowledge, why are we still standing still? Why don't we describe the things we can pass down more clearly? Even if our descendants are complete idiots or fools, as long as they are willing to look and willing to follow what we have described, then at least we can ensure that our excellent traditions are not lost. ISNT that, right? Li Chengqian was shocked. Everyone was the same. They all stared at Yan Bai in astonishment. A person with such far-sighted vision was a second-generation rich kid. Was this still the same Yan Bai who knew nothing but martial arts? Yan Shan's eyes shone brightly, startlingly so. Suddenly standing up, he tore a piece of Xian paper on the desk into shreds. Then he spread out a new sheet, changed to a smaller brush. Uncle, tell me again. This time, let's write it as detailed as possible. As night fell, Yan Bai and Yan Shan moved from under the tree to the tent to continue writing. Inside the tent, Yan Bai, bare-chested, wiped his sweat while recalling how to effectively describe controlling the plague spread. First of all, one thing was indisputable. The imperial court must send people to take overall control. Checkpoints must be set up at every intersection. A policy of only allowing entry but no exit must be implemented. Yan Shan had no idea how many words he had written, how many sheets of paper he had wasted. Yet his spirit grew more and more vigorous. Such unimaginable methods, such an interconnected step-by-step process truly opened one's eyes. On reflection, it was strange. His own family had no such books, and this uncle of his never liked reading or writing. So who did he learn all this from? Could it be that all these years he had been pretending? Eunuch Chow, I'm a bit thirsty. Please fetch some water. Remember, this nephew of yours has also been working hard all day. Add more honey to the water. Otherwise, it's tasteless and undrinkable. The young eunuch Chow, who was grinding ink, hurriedly stood up. Then he went about his tasks. If his memory served him correctly, he clearly remembered that this was the 9th time Yan Bai had ordered him around. However, he dare not say anything, because this was arranged by Li Chengqian. Seeing the young eunuch Chow leave, Yan Shan put down his brush and waited for the ink to dry. Ever since we arrived here, I've noticed you always glance at this young eunuch Chow from time to time. I'm curious, this young eunuch hasn't offended you, so why do you keep ordering him around? How could Yan Bai reveal the malicious amusement in his heart? He chuckled upon hearing this. Can you keep it up? If you can't, we'll continue tomorrow. Yan Shan stood up and stretched his waist. Never put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Yan Bai nodded. Good, let's finish it in one go, so we don't have that nagging thought stuck in our minds. Everything else feels uncomfortable. Next, we need to write about the importance of hygiene. First, we should divide hygiene into 2 main concepts. One is public hygiene. The other is personal hygiene. Lamp oil was added 3 times. The sky began to show a hint of light at the horizon. Yan Shan put away the brush and inkstone, looking at the dense, small characters on dozens of sheets of paper before him. He felt a great sense of accomplishment. Upon closer reflection, he felt it was very enlightening. Originally thought it was merely a method. Unexpectedly, it turned into tens of thousands of words. It turned out to be a complete system. It could be called a book. To be honest, Yan Shan felt a bit regretful. The initial level of this medical system is worthy of being an heirloom in the family. He thought he should first show this to the family's elder before presenting it to His Majesty. After all, this was personally narrated by his uncle. It should rightly belong to the Yan family. But that young eunuch stuck to him like glue. Yan Shan wanted to find a chance to discuss it with his uncle several times. Unfortunately, he was a bit too thin-skinned. The words were on the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't bring himself to say them. Gritting his teeth, Yan Shan said with some reluctance, Uncle, you should put your name on it. Yan Bai let out a big yawn. Just write your own name on it, that'll do. Upon hearing this, Yan Shan jumped 3 feet in the air. How can that be? These are all your work. If I put my name on it, how could I still hold my head up high? Hurry, hurry. After you write it, I'll take it to the Prince of Zhongshan. That should wrap this matter up. I'm ready to get a good night's sleep. True enough. Write it and then sleep. Taking the brush from Yan Shan's hand, looking at the clean characters without a single ink blot across the whole page, Yan Bai felt a bit of a headache. There were no punctuation marks. This punctuation is a problem. What a pain, forget it. Anyway, I'm not the one reading it. If it's painful, it's not my pain. Yan Bai wrote with a swift brush. Yan Bai. Yan Shan blowing the ink dry. Handing it to Yan Shan. Done. Time to sleep. Yan Shan studied the 4 characters Yan Bai had written. Suddenly, he furrowed his brow. Strange, why are these characters so skinny? No, that is not right, skinny, yet still fleshy. Strange, strange. Li Chengxian looked at the thick stack of memorials before him, feeling unusually pleased. This was his first assignment since leaving the palace. He never expected it to be so perfectly completed, nor did he expect the Yin family to take this matter so seriously. He had seen with his own eyes the two riding from afternoon until dawn the next day. According to eunuch Chao's report, the two were drenched in sweat inside the tent, yet they never complained of hardship or fatigue. Such an attitude truly commands the utmost respect. But his own jar of honey was gone. It was a real pity. Sleeping until the afternoon, Yan Bai was licked awake by 9 tails. Opening his eyes, Yan Bai was almost scared to death. On either side of the pillow lay a dead rabbit. On the other side was a dead weasel. Both poor creatures had their heads missing. Only the bodies remained. Seeing 9 tails lying beside him, looking as if it was showing off its achievement, Yan Bai happily rubbed 9 tails' head. Oh, what a clever little thing. I appreciate your kindness. I'll go roast the rabbit later. Seeing Yan Bai get up, 9 tails lightly leaped onto his shoulder, then settled down securely. Eyes narrowed, letting out a series of rhythmic purrs from its throat. Under the big tree, Yan Bai chewed on a piece of guacamole flatbread. He watched the eunuch Chao roasting the rabbit, shouting orders as he did so. Turn it over, don't let it burn. If it burns, it won't taste good. The eunuch Chao wiped the sweat from his forehead. Rest assured, Colonel Yin, before I entered the palace, I was a beggar. Back then, everything was difficult, and only making fire was simple. Whenever kind-hearted people gave me food, I liked to roast it before eating. But kind-hearted people weren't around every day. Today, this family gave you something. Next time, unless you're unbearably hungry, you'd be too embarrassed to ask again. Sometimes, when I couldn't find food, I'd go to the streams and catch frogs in the paddy ditches and field mice to stave off hunger. I'm not afraid you'll laugh at me for saying this. When it comes to roasting things, I'm even more skilled than the foreign merchants of the East and West markets. If they saw my skill, they'd probably be fighting to take me as their master. Yan Bai thought that the young eunuch Chao was an expert. Upon hearing this, he gave a thumbs up. Anyone who can say that is clearly an expert. Today, I want to eat every last bit of the rabbit meat. Young eunuch Chao revealed a big smile. His movements became even more nimble. Young eunuch Chao said, "Don't take this the wrong way, but to be honest, I'm really curious how you ended up in the palace." Young eunuch Chao sighed. Why would I take that to heart? Before entering the palace, the authorities had already investigated everything thoroughly. It's all recorded in the Bureau of Palace Servants. Since Captain Yin wants to hear it today, I'll tell you a bit. According to my mother, there were 7 children in my family. I'm the 4th, with 3 older brothers and 1 older sister. But those 4 older siblings starved to death before I was born. After that, the world became a bit more peaceful. Life got a little better, and my parents managed to raise me and a few younger siblings for 2 years of peaceful days. But then war broke out unexpectedly. My parents took us, and we fled. Later, my mother also died. All that was left were me, my father, and my little brother and sister. To keep my little brother and sister alive, my father sold me. Through a twist of fate, I ended up in the palace. Young attendant Chao broke into a big grin. Tears glistened in his eyes. This way is best I get to live. And my brother gets to live too. But I truly hope I'm the last one ever to be sold. Yan Bai's heart suddenly grew heavy. He stood up and patted young attendant Chao on the shoulder. Words of comfort were on the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't bring himself to say them. Without having experienced what he went through, it's impossible to truly empathize, whether you admit it or not. In this world, only the person who feels the cold knows the warmth.